I've decided it's time to finally repair my old XYZ Nano printer. It was collecting dust on my shelf for quite some time. It stopped working due to Hotend failure. I could buy a new one, but it costs about half as much as printer. It's also designed to work only with XYZ filament spools, which really sucks. I'm also missing the PCB board for the extruder, which is a bit annoying, but it's fine. Luckily, I've kept the original Hotend, which will make the stuff easier later on. As you can tell, it's really odd piece. There are no spare parts for this, not even nozzles. Whole Hotend assembly attaches to the gantry with spring-based system, which is pretty cool. I've actually made some changes to this printer before, such as print chamber fan, which helps while printing PLA. There's also a spool holder built in, which is cool, but it's for the really smart spools only. The stock extruder probably needs to be changed to more common one, because I've had some issues with it before. Power switch and USB port can be found on the bottom, those won't be used anymore. I've decided to change the stock motherboard to different one so I could use whatever filament and firmware I want. Stock motherboard is really weird as well, it's impressively small. First of all, I actually need to clean the whole printer, there's a lot of dust inside and outside. For cleaning I will use IPA and some regular toilet paper. You could use some fiber cloth instead, but it's not really big deal. I've cleaned the outer shell with ease, I've damaged the sticker though. Main issue will be with cleaning the inside of the printer. I will have to take the Z-axis higher in order to access the bottom half of the printer. I've marked every cable, so I will know in the future how to connect them. I've removed the stock motherboard as it won't be used anymore. I don't really know what to do with it, so I will put it in the storage for now. I've attached longer Z-axis cable so that I could connect it to my Ender 3 and higher the Z-axis. I've connected the printer to my other printer. It's not a perfect solution, but it will work for testing purposes. It moves really slow, but you should be able to see the movement. LED screw is really small on this printer, so it takes some time to move upwards. I've successfully moved the gantry upwards, which lets me clean the lower half of the printer. The build plate is actually fully removable, but detaching two clamps on the front. After detaching clamps, it can be simply pulled upwards. The build plate is also made of glass, which is cool. I've more or less cleaned it for now. It requires new grease since I've wiped the old one. I've cleaned the glass as well, it's actually in way better condition than I thought. There are some plastic bits inside the plastic housing, but I can't get them out without vacuum cleaner. It looks quite nice next to my Ender 3. I've decided to use my old ramps with Arduino boards attached. I don't really have any use for it, so I might as well put it into this project. I'm going to remove some of the ports as I don't really like using detachable cables. I've removed the voltage connectors as well as stepper motor's gold pins. I'll just solder everything directly to the board, which will ensure that no cable will detach itself. Arduino board itself has some things as soldered, but it was already like this. I'll try to use the original power supply, which came with the printer, but I don't have much faith in it. I've soldered the power supply to the RAMPS board. You shouldn't really do this, I'm just checking stuff. I've soldered the Z-axis cable to the RAMPS board. Those are a bit short now, I will make them longer later. Power supply works correctly, but there is a lot of noise coming from the motors. I've uploaded the code which moves all of the axes just barely. You might not see it on video, but Z axis is going slightly up and then slightly down. I've soldered all of the stepper motor cables. It will make it easier to connect everything later on. I need to remove the spool holder as it really works only with half kilo spools. Inside the spool holder there's an NFC reader which could be salvaged for future projects. I've got no idea how it could be connected to the Arduino or Raspberry Pi, but I'm sure it can be done. Right now I won't need it, since I want to get rid of the dedicated spool requirement. I will remove the original extruder as well, since I want to change it for more common one. There's a lot of electronics inside. I can safely get rid of the additional cables, as those were only for filament sensor inside the extruder. I will leave only the motor cable. The cooling fan actually was quite useful, but I need to get rid of it for now. There's a lot of empty space already, but I still need to get rid of the spare cables. I've removed the stock extruded cable, as I will replace it with shorter one. I've removed all of the spare wiring, basically nothing left now. On the bottom there's a lot of cables which need to be connected to the new mainboard. I've made this prototype Arduino Mega holder which is supposed to be mounted on the back. It's supposed to cover the holes but leave the hole on the right open for the cables. The screw holes on the Arduino holder need to be relocated, as right now those could create some issues inside the housing. I've soldered the Z-axis first, as I've already messed around with the cable before and didn't want to lose track of the wiring. After that I've soldered all of the remaining motors. I will screw back the plastic cover, as I won't do any more work on the wiring for a while. It looks quite well, even with all of the cables coming out of the printer. I've disassembled the stock extruder so I could get out the stock motor. I thought about using the stock mechanism, but it seems that I can't really take any of the parts out. I will use the cheap aluminum extruder instead, as I've used it on my other printers for a while and it works really well. I will remove the Hotend adapter from the stock extruder. I might use it in the new one. It seems that the thread is a bit small for the new extruder, so I will use the different Hotend adapter. The other Hotend adapter fits really well inside the new extruder. I think it's the spare one for the Ender 3. I've printed this prototype extruder holder to see how well it will work with my printer. It was really easy to mount. I've attached it between the motor and the extruder assembly. It holds the extruder pretty well. Now it's time to design the proper one. This one is the final one for now. It's really sturdy, so it should work well. It looks good so far. I've left some empty space on top in case I would need a fan. Also I'd prefer different colors, so I might change it later on. I've pulled out the RAM boards for now, so I could check how the board holder could be corrected. I've made a new version which has better board mounting as well as improved housing screw placement. You can see that I've placed the top screw holes a bit lower, this way it won't affect any of the axes. I will use 2 screws to secure the board inside the holder. I didn't design it to use threaded inserts, as I thought that would be an overkill. You can simply screw the screws into the plastic, it holds really well. Now I need to make screw holes in the printer housing. I will mark them with my screwdriver. I've made some holes with my drill and now I'm ready to secure the housing with M3 screws. I've had a small issue with top right screw, as there's a lot of wires behind it, but it can be made easier with shorter screw. I've put the RAMPS board back on top of the Arduino. Those loose wires are for the Extruder motor. I've prepared a custom Marlin firmware which I will upload now. It turns out the original power supply works after all. The issue might have been in the previous code. Motors are still loud as hell, but I think this could be fixed by using the silent step sticks. Right now I've got the off-brand ones, which are really cheap but performance could be bad at times. I still need to connect the end stops since I didn't do it at first. I'll use piece of the original extruder wire to connect it to the RAMPS board. I didn't connect it directly to the board since I might do some modifications later on. I've printed simple spool holder which can hold a regular sized spool. I've designed it in two pieces for easier printing. Both pieces are meant to be combined with two large M3 screws. I don't have any M3 nuts right now as I'm recording at 5 AM and stores are closed. It's not perfect but it won't affect the functionality. I've screwed it onto the main housing where the old spool holder used to be. As you can see, a full-size spool fits pretty well. Lower part of the spool touches the electronics, but it won't be a problem when I make the electronics cover. Filament goes into the extruder in pretty much straight line, which will make sure that there are no problems with feeding. I've prepared this simple hotend holder for Creality Hotend. The hotend that I have doesn't work, but it will be useful for design purposes. It attaches to the plate simply by screwing the fan assembly on top of it. As you can see, it's pretty small. I think it will work fine. I've already ordered new working one, so I will test it out soon. Right now that's all for part 1. Part 2 coming out soon, so look out for that.